What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Rona Report. My name is Elizabeth Chijioke. I am your host.
And I'm Rock.
And I'm Marisa.
And we have a guest today, and we're so excited. Hi, Ryan. How are you?
Hello. I'm doing well. Thank you for having me. Much appreciated.
Absolutely.
Recovering from some food poisoning, but that's not the most deadly sickness that's out there right now. So I'm just thankful for that.
It is pretty horrible, though. It's pretty bad. Well, thank you for coming.
Just a quick plug.
Yeah.
I'm starting a YouTube channel myself, Dissected Debates. It'll be up soon. So whenever this episode comes out, give it a search on YouTube and subscribe if you.
Say the name again.
Dissected Debates.
And this will be in the bio. Well, this will be in our bio link. So thank you, Ryan. I hope that your stomach feels better. I hope that you're doing better. If it's your first time joining us, this is the Rona Report. We are a contemporary show featuring young people of color, and we discuss all things COVID or all things under the coronavirus. And so we hope that you enjoy our episode today. We're so happy to have you. Yeah, let's get into it. So first things first, we're going to do our newsreel segment, which is where we go around and talk about, each of us quickly discuss one or two things that we found interesting during the week, or that we feel people should know about. I guess I'll go first. One thing interesting I found this week, which I think everyone else found, was that Trump 45, we'll call him 45, was diagnosed or sent to the hospital because he recently got COVID, and so he was sent to the hospital. So I thought that was actually really interesting for something that was a hoax a few months ago. Also, New York City schools, I read up this morning, are being closed again because there have been spikes in cases. And so that's, as predicted, the second wave of COVID is coming. So if you're out there, be safe. And that's my newsreel. That's my highlight. Would like to go second?
I wasn't Marisa, like you have a story.
So it's not necessarily a news story, but I think that one of the most interesting things I'm seeing are the conspiracy theories, which I actually believe that Trump might actually not be sick. The more he talks, and the more people are getting that are more Republicans that are saying, like Chris Christie said he's been diagnosed, and Chris Christie has asthma and is clearly overweight. I don't know. In my mind, I know this is a humiliating experience for him, and why would you fake that? But then he's faked so many other things, and it's interesting to hear the conspiracy theories about, like, oh, he just doesn't want to debate anymore, so he's pretending to have COVID. But honestly, if he has it, that's good. I'm not gonna lie. People are rejoicing about this, and I'm one of those people. So, yeah, that's my news story of the week. Yeah. I don't care. I'm happy that you have it, if you do.
I think what's more interesting about that is that, like, people don't have trust in, like,
I don't trust him.
Government. So, like, you're like, I don't know if he really has it. I don't know if he doesn't have it. And it's just like, because we've been undermined and lied to so many times, like, we just don't know what the truth is. And I actually have no opinion about, I'm just like, I don't know. I couldn't tell you if he has it or if he doesn't have it. Like, you could, and so thank you for sharing that. Ryan, did you want to go? Or Rock, did you? It's okay if you don't.
If anything, I was just going to share the story about the Philly activists and community organizers that secured 50 vacant houses for houseless folks, and established a model for securing housing from the government, especially because it's housing that's literally like buildings that are vacant, that are then being now reallocated to more of a community trust. So local organizations and our people to actually get those homes filled with people, which is good news, especially in response to just I know Cuomo tried to expand the eviction ban, but then when you look at in New York and when you look at what people on the ground organizing have said, they said it's not sufficient. When you look at what landlords say, they say it's not sustainable. So definitely, I think if anything, highlighting the fact that government, regardless of whether or not it's good or bad, will try to do something, but most likely not exactly hitting needs. So connecting with those community organizations and also just thinking about them being more empowered to take up more space because people are seeing them as something to rely on.
Yeah. I think it's so powerful when I think change happens on a local level. And I think it's so powerful when you see it actually happening in a community and people like relying on themselves to like do things. Like on one end, it's like we pay all these taxes for our government to take care of us. But in actuality, what's going to happen if they don't take care of us? We're going to take care of ourselves. So I think that's so amazing, especially right now where we are going through like a homeless crisis. Like people have lost their house, people are losing their houses, and people will lose their houses. So like that's amazing.
And if you live in Los Angeles, we've been going through a homeless crisis.
Yeah,
that's our number one thing.
Yeah,
is the homelessness here, and it's expanded. It's become enormous.
Yeah, especially with COVID, people are So thank you for sharing that, Ryan.
So one of the things that I think maybe terrified me the most this week was a news story basically saying that the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, which I think is like a big lobbying organization for like big, for all corporations to kind of like send their lobbyists and then they kind of like petition the White House on policy and so forth. They actually stopped Republicans or one of the head people in that organization quit because they wouldn't let him run as in support of Republicans in battleground states. So that's kind of signaling like they want the Democrats to win. I think that makes sense from the corporate standpoint because Trump is unstable and crazy, and so they don't want that level of instability, but they do want the tax cuts. And I feel like when they go with the Democrats, whether they go with the Republicans, they'll be good either way. And so that's one thing that as we still want to defeat Trump, we always have to keep our eye on the prize to like make sure that we can hold Joe Biden's feet to the fire and make sure to whatever extent we can that he's not completely usurped by corporate goons essentially.
Sorry, I was muted. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. It's what's it called when something is, especially like in the political arena, like a lot of people like underestimate the power of like lobbyists and kind of just like small or just the behind the scene like tiny organizations who are like I think they're called thinker somethings, but
think tanks.
Think tanks, yep, absolutely. And they're doing all of like this work and stuff, and they have a lot of power, and they influence a lot of people. So yeah, that's actually really interesting. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, so let's get into it because Marisa's like, yo, we're out of time. We just started. And so today we will be talking about, this is part 2 of the presidential debate coverage. And so we're just gonna, really, this is really for like Rock, Marisa, and Ryan, because I feel like I've already shared my thoughts on the presidential debates. And so I would like to frame this episode under 3 questions. So, and I could also like reiterate each question, but like just from the beginning to the end, like prior to the debate, like what were your expectations of the debate? Like what was like, I know a lot of people are like, I wasn't even just gonna watch it, like I wasn't, even gonna waste my time, but like as people who are invested in their futures and people who like pay attention to these kind of things, like what were your expectations of the debate going in? And as our guest, Ryan, you have first dibs on that.
Okay, thank you. I mean, I think the expectation from my part was just that Trump would be more or less like he was in 2016. To me, he was more obnoxious this time. He was more like aggressive and just kind of biting, and the attacks that he did have, they just kind of, they were kind of faltery, and, they didn't have like that sharp timing that he used to have. And so I expected him to be a little bit more, if it's possible for Trump to be a little bit more strategic about like when he, sort of was attacking Biden. From Biden's side, I expected him to kind of flounder around. Actually, I didn't expect that much out of him. And I mean, I think he still kind of floundered, but it was masked, I think, by the overall dumpster fire that was there. So I think he kind of got bailed out. But I had low expectations, and somehow they went underground from those expectations.
Thanks for being honest. Marisa, Rock?
Yeah, I mean, I was just going to say, I think I'm very interested in what it means to be a citizen of a country that has so much impact, and you choose not to pay attention to who is going to be leading that country. Like, what is our obligation as individual citizens that live in a country that has impacts in the climate around the world? Like, everyone's climate, we have impacts in everyone's sustainability in future, and not just because of the fact that we bulldoze our way into being in positions where we are responsible for these things that we have no right to be responsible for, but also because of the way that our system of capitalism, white supremacy is intertwined in so many different places in the world, and there's still responsibility for that has yet to be held accountable for. But yeah, I mean, my thing is, I definitely don't think that it was an hour of time that, like, amount of time that I enjoyed, in terms of, yeah, it was just the worst presidential debate in our history. But there's something about needing to watch that, because you need to know who your opponent is going to be. Because guess what, whether it's Biden or whether it's Trump, whoever's the president is not our friend. They are always going to be our opponent, who we need to be holding accountable. And how do we hold them accountable if we don't know who they are? How do we hold them accountable if we don't even know where they're coming from, where their positions are, the things that they are willing to skate around? Like, the idea of not being able to name white supremacy groups, that's something that's really important to know that Trump wasn't able to do, and you wouldn't know that if you didn't watch the debate. The fact that even the moderator asked, you can ask a question, I'm going to ask a question about race, but you don't have to answer it. Skating around that conversation is another thing that is important for us to know and see. And I think that it's unfortunate if, again, you are the ability to be in tune with your government in the way that we do, and we don't even take that full opportunity to hold it wholly accountable. Because I know there's shit we don't even know that they're doing, but the stuff that we do know is more than dangerous enough.
I just want to comment on Ryan's like critic Ryan in church. No, I think what's funny about that is primarily the people who are telling me like, oh, I didn't watch it, were young people. And when you look at what happened in 2016, it's like there's a low voter turnout for young people, because again, we're not involved in politics. We don't care about politics. We don't see the impact that it makes on our lives, right? And so like, I think it's such a dangerous thing. And when you come out, and that's why when people come out and say, well, like, I have people all the time telling me like, I'll vote for Trump simply because at least he says who he is. And I'm like, but what about the details? You're like, and they really feel like they're saying something to me. Like, at least Joe Biden is a closeted racist. At least Trump is an outward racist. And I'm like,
that's cool.
dangerous.
No,
That's so dangerous.
Don't talk to those people. They're
No,
lost. Those are lost souls.
That's a huge percentage of young people. That's a huge percentage of not even young people. I was talking to a woman who was 57, and she was like, "Yeah, at least Trump says who he is." I think you hit the nail on the head, Rob.
No, like it's one of those things where we can agree to disagree on certain things. We can't agree to disagree on somebody who has the Proud Boys on standby. We can't agree to disagree on that. No, because those people want to hurt me and people that look like me and anybody that doesn't support what they support. So y'all can go to hell with this whole, I'm voting for Trump because he's himself.
Right.
Is he really? He's a fake fraud businessman that has been, and we never would have known if you had just, because we still associated it. We still associated his name with money. To know
this man has paid more taxes in other countries than the U.S. in the past 2 years. So just throwing on the fact that you don't know how to manage your money, and most of where your money is going is not this country.
Right.
How did you lose $400 million twice?
You have the capacity to be our president and to say that you're an American and to go up there and just talk nonsense. Okay, Marisa, did you want to answer the question? Did you?
Oh, the debate was terrible. We all know that it was awful. It was the worst debate in history. The fact that Trump never answered any, and it was a Fox News host who was the moderator. This should have been like
easy peasy.
Easy peasy. It was just pushed in your way. No, he had to make it hard. He answered no questions. He yelled incoherently the entire time. He needs to retake that dementia test and see where he is now, because he just answered nothing. Easy layup, and it was just like, it was hard to watch because you realize that Joe Biden is an older man and you realize why people are voting for him, but it was frustrating to see him not being able to defend himself, especially when he talked about his child who, like a lot of Americans, has a battle with addiction. That is very relatable. A lot of people have lost children to that. And when he attacked his dead son.
Let me from there, let's segue to the second question. What were three critical moments for you during that debate? Because for that was one of mine. I'm like, he talked about not only his son who passed away, but his son who's also battling addiction. And then for Joe Biden to look in the camera and say, I'm proud of my son for overcoming this disease, I felt like was a really good moment for him. What do you
good moments from the debate?
Critical moments. Critical moments. Critical moments, good or bad?
Oh, critical. Yeah. Critical. Well, I know people's favorite moment was when Joe Biden told President Trump to shut up, and now Fox News is going around saying, how dare he tell the sitting president to shut up? And I'm just looking at them like
politics.
Like, that's what you pulled out?
Right.
Okay. But yeah, that was one of the favorite parts. The Proud Boy thing, which he said he denounced the Proud Boys, but it was over the he called Fox News from the hospital and I denounced the Proud Boys, but Antifa. That was another thing. He just kept going on about Antifa, and it's not an organization. It's not a white supremacist organization. It's
literally a philosophy of just anti-fascism. So to say that you are scared of an organization that is against fascism says a lot about what you stand for.
All right.
And represent.
Okay.
It's the same thing that happens with socialism, right? And socialists, but that's another conversation. People just throw out words and surround it with propaganda, and then
they put fear behind it.
Right. And they're just like, oh my God, socialist, anti whatever. Anyways. Where were we?
Oh, we were just talking about the best moments, but those were the highlights. I don't know if I have three.
Look, I'll say a critical missing moment for me was when Joe Biden didn't directly look that man in the face while he was leaning over to him the whole damn debate and say, where are your taxes? I'm sorry. How are we having this conversation and you haven't even get my taxes returning this morning, sir? My taxes returning this morning. Where are yours? Is really my question. Because how dare you sit here and say anything to me when you haven't even told the American people where your money is, where it's going, how you're moving it around?
Yeah.
Like,
and to piggyback off that, you know, getting into the nitty gritty of like what it means, right? So, okay, yeah, you're as Rock said before, like you're paying more money to other countries basically in their taxes, but you know, you haven't paid the US for the last 10 out of 15 years or whatever.
He pays what I pay. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, so it's like, okay, so you know, if you have the most like amount of power in terms of foreign policy, right? So, you know, if your money is coming from different places, if you're paying more money to other places and you've got international deals tied up, like how do we know that you're doing it for the American people instead of for yourself? You know what I'm saying? Like that like he should have been hit so many times over that, but you know, just never came from Joe.
I saw
national security issue.
Every time it is a national, I think it's a conflict of interest actually, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, you could sell secrets to places that you owe money to.
And I was thinking that this morning actually, but let's not get into that. But I completely agree with you, Ryan, because I'm like, I saw a meme the other day that said like, Joe should have answered every question or like started off with answering every question. Like that's the $750 question, right? Because
instead of here's the deal, it's here's the $750 deal.
Right. Like, because I felt like that was I felt like, I don't know if the American people, I don't know who watches the news. I just assume that like when I meet someone, I just assume that they don't. And so like, I'm always, you know, from that standpoint, but how dare you? I've paid more taxes.
Mm-hmm.
I've paid more taxes.
That's what the poor pay.
Right. So why was that not brought up in the debate? Why was it not brought up that, you know, he's known about COVID since February. And not only did you lie, you undermined every effort of like other organizations to like assist like the American people, right? So you stopped USPS from giving masks to like every household. Like you told people to drink bleach. You're doing all of these things to like effectively murder people, like, you know? And so like, I felt like that was something that should have been brought up on the stage, but you know, I wasn't at the debate. I'm not running for president. I might though.
I think it was also very hard for Joe to keep track. He's a much older man.
Yeah.
And Trump just yelling things literally at random.
Yeah.
Like his thought patterns weren't even connecting.
Right.
So he was just like yelling out random things. It's like you're trying to count to 100 and somebody's constantly yelling out random numbers.
Right.
Trying to count like down and you're like, oh wait, what number was I at? Oh no, I have to start over. And I think that's what Joe's brain was doing.
Yeah,
like, wait, you talked about this, well, let me try to answer that. You know what, F it, I'm talking to people. And I just saw a bunch of this.
You know what's crazy? And you know what's interesting?
Done with you.
Bring it back to like Ryan's point, like you felt like Trump didn't have a strategy. I felt that was a strategy. I felt that was so purposeful. The strategy was to come in and just like, I said this last episode, overwhelm, frustrate, and confuse people. Like that was like the entire, like I could do this for an hour and 30 minutes. That's all I have to do from like answering any real questions. They asked this guy about climate change. He started talking about cars. Like he started talking about like.
Isn't that so reminiscent of his rallies? If you listen to what he says in his rallies, he goes off on these tangents that never connect. Like, it's just like he'll be talking about the dogs. Or remember when he was mad at the plumbing and was talking about how the plumbing was the enemy? And it was just like, where is this coming from?
Right.
That was definitely, that's just how he talks.
Yeah.
Look,
and this time he felt he had to talk over talk.
And you said what? As a Hitler was a great orator too, and there's something about that, the power of a populace that you explicitly undereducate, under-resource, and you underfund when it comes to just, and this is me not even talking about a specific strategy from socioeconomics, because there are a lot of people who have a lot of money who also have a lot of ignorance about this country, its history, and what the implications of their actual policies are in the world. So I don't think it's about a type of education. I think it's specifically political education that has been robbed of people, that makes it to where all these connections between why you have to make the decision about sending your kid to school when you have to on a regular year fundraise for stuff like paper and pencils. Yeah, like that's coming up in this kind of a space where it's not actually understood that no, but you shouldn't be having to make those decisions on your own, and there should be something that actually is input so that there's a safety net. Like in the very bare minimum, if the only reason why government this is to be a safety net to make sure that no one hits the floor, then we're all beneath that floor in a lot of ways. So what is it there for besides propping up the people who explicitly again benefit from it and are strategically intertwined in it and leading it in a way that they've also, again, because of that robbed political consciousness, have stolen people on the ground level's ability to make that same impact. Because someone from a community can write legislation and do proposals, but it's the fact that it becomes a full-time job as a lobbyist to create that impact, to have that engagement. But in actuality, if you're part of this population and it's supposed to be a democracy, you should have the ability to create impact, regardless of where you sit on any strata. Ideally.
I have nothing to say about that. I'm just, yeah. I think icing on the cake. I think
I would just, if I could just jump in. Yeah, once again, to kind of piggyback off Rock, I think that, kind of Trump is very much like a product of the country that we've created, where, there is that lack of sort of civic education, and there's a lack of there's like a lack of civic education on purpose by design. And that leads to, okay, you somehow elect that person into office, and this is like the most critical point, to get back to the question for me, was basically all of the points, or was the specific point about like what Trump is going to do about the voting. Like, he keeps saying, oh, like the election is going to be fraudulent, there's going to be so many ballots that are thrown in waste paper baskets or whatever, I guess. Like, his level of civic education somehow doesn't let him comprehend that, number one, he's the president, number two, he can do things to like help any perceived problems with the election. Like, he can do something about it. And I think when he speaks to supporters, they like, I feel like they kind of go along with it. They're like, yeah, like, they kind of agree with him on the problem, like on some kind of surface level. But then that's the point where like our civic education should click, and it's like, oh, well, we should go to like our county registrar, and we should be poll workers to make sure that these things go by in an orderly fashion. But he's kind of stuck at the elementary level of, things are bad, it's not fair, but me, I want to win, and I should be the one that's winning. And not that I have a plan for it or anything, and I don't come up with a plan for it, but it's fraudulent in all cases where it's bad for me.
To me.
Yeah. But do you feel, Ryan, that it is like purposeful? Like, I think that at least in my 8 months of actually paying attention to him, like, we underestimate like how, like, at first I was like, oh, he's so stupid, right? But it's like, no, like, all of this is intentional. Like, he's not a stupid person. He downplays how smart he is.
No, he's not smart. Don't lie. He's not smart.
I'm not saying he's smart, but what I'm saying is that he's much more aware than we presume him to be. And I say that because I feel like, look at COVID. Look at the COVID response. Like, he knew it's February. So it's like, I don't want to say that he doesn't know, and like I think he downplays and babies his like voters. I mean, not his voters, his supporters.
I feel like you can know and just be stupid. You can do both.
Okay.
You can do both.
I don't know. I feel like he's
the critical thinking. It's like, he can be aware of this information and still like not connected to the larger schism of what matters. But I think there's also people around him that see those connections, and they're able to guide him in a way that allows him to make the greatest impact in terms of resurging, like galvanizing white supremacy and like basic and encouraging vile behavior at the same time that he's not even fully aware of what he's doing. He's being like, it's not that he's not, he has facts presented to him, he has an inability to critical think and connect them, but people around him are doing that in a way where I think another moment for me in the debate that really but became even more like distressing was just when Joe Biden kept saying numbers, and specifically named after, if COVID continues at this rate, 1 in 500 Black people are going to be dead at the end of the year. And that number was concerning to me because I know when Trump hears a number, he doesn't care. When Biden hears a number, he can say it, but he doesn't really care. And so it's, what does it mean if that's actually the point? Is that if one out of every 500 Black people dying actually doesn't matter to them? Them saying that is such a like. It was so concerning because it was like, you make us a number so easily, but that's lives. That's people who have connections to this world. Or I mean, even
There's
if
four people in
it doesn't
this
matter. It's people. Yeah, it's like
four
you're
people
naming
in-
people, and it's as if it's just, oh, that's gonna happen. And how do you feel about that? Well, I don't care how you feel about it. That just shouldn't be. Like, it's not about how anyone feels about that.
Yeah. Okay. No. Yeah. Yeah. I think, okay, let's jump into the last question. What did you hope people got from the debate? And Ryan, Ryan, please.
Yeah, the first thing that comes to mind is the thing that I hope that people got from it is the fact that, like, no matter what topic you get Trump to talk about, he literally doesn't have a plan. He has complaints, he has, conspiracy theories for you, but he doesn't have a plan on what to do about it. And he doesn't have the like insight or the the capacity to really even take responsibility that it's something for him to do. He was talking about the wildfires. A lot of those wildfires, as we know, like, are on federal land. So when he's saying, like, we need better, like, I think he wants people, he was saying we need to, like, rake up the leaves or, like, move the logs or whatever. And it's like, even if you, like, as on the face kind of dumb as that is, like, if you really believe that, then as the leader of the federal government, you could do something about it. But, like, it doesn't connect with him that, hey, like, I have power to do a thing that, would actually improve the situation. It's not in his capacity to, perceive it as his fault. And he did say this, kind of earlier in the coronavirus, like, response. There was, he was in I think, the Rose Garden, and somebody asked him, like, do you bear any responsibility for, the deaths or anything related to COVID? And he was like, I take no responsibility. And that's just his attitude for everything. So that's what I hope people took away. I feel like most people kind of took away the fact that he was, like, an aggressive fighter type person, even though it's in the most annoying way possible. I think that's the main takeaway. I think that's the main takeaway some people probably saw. One of the more distressing things, actually, that I did see kind of after the debate, and that I've been sort of watching also, is that Latinos, like, the Latino support for Trump is up, over 2016. I think the Black male support is up a little bit also.
Oh,
so
that's so sad.
Guys, what are we doing out here? But I think so, and I think that kind of speaks to just that overly aggressive, maybe macho, sort of, machismo valence that he has, even though it's incompetent. But so that's the thing that I think people took away, but I hope people took away that he's an irresponsible narcissist.
Thank you. Marisa, you want to go and then Rock?
The takeaway is, I'm like, how could you watch that and think that there is any sort of competence there? It was just kind of like, at least for me, the takeaway was this man has the Proud Boys on standby. We should all be afraid, okay? Because they're, making slogans. They're all happy. Girl, we should be scared. He's been a white supremacist. He's always been a white supremacist. He's never denounced it except right after when he got sick and he started wanting that sympathy. And everybody was like, no, we could care less. Yeah, I don't know how what did you take? What did you take? There was like, the main takeaway from a lot of people was we need to learn how to mute the mics. We need the moderator to have more power. This is nothing that's ever been precedented or unprecedented presidential behavior, whatever. I'm just kind of like, that was trash, hot trash. And I think that the only thing I really took away was his gross incompetence to even answer a damn question. So that's what my takeaway was.
Thank you.
Sorry. It just makes
No, say honestly, anything you take away at this point, because that's still participation, really is what it is. Even if you take away the fact that you're dissatisfied, that's participation, and that's important participation that I hope people will definitely engage with as far as this presidential debate. But also just like, isn't it so funny that to save their democracy, like, and I say there because when on any side of my family, no one was brought here, came here in any capacity and decided what kind of government this is going to be. So they sent in Joe Biden to save their democracy. And I got to tell you, like, that's a pretty interesting warrior to pick for your final battle. But that's also, it's also just a piece of this idea that one of the key, I think, intertwinements of this country as manifestation, regardless of what party you're affiliated with, is the fact that there is going to be white supremacy. So that means that there's going to be something taking care of what is considered the status quo. So if enough people are comfortable with the status quo, they won't actually antagonize the fact that there is something about the status quo that is deeply detrimental to a portion of the people around them. Because again, if they really wanted to beat Donald Trump, they wouldn't have sent in Joe Biden. And I think that's what I took away from this debate, is that they're not even really fighting for their democracy. So what am I doing to not fight for their democracy, but fight for my community? In spite of that.
To be fair, Rock, they did literally, like, and I mean the media when I say they tried to put everybody else on, almost everybody else on, except Sanders, except Yang, they tried everybody else, and they're like, well, yes, we got to go.
I think
it'll work.
I think to your point, Rock, it's like we speak of like this day, right? And when we talk about like accountability and we talk about like responsibility, right? So like I think of primarily like Nancy Pelosi and how like she does not represent any world in which I live in. She does not represent the America that I live in. And so like, but she's Speaker of the House, right? And all of her, the entire, even AOC, she doesn't necessarily like represent me, but she's close to this idea. She represents this world that I could see myself like living in, right? And so like, to your point, it's like you send in Joe Biden, to this debate, to like such a monumental time in American history. I'm like, if Trump wins another 4 years, goodbye to this, whatever you think this country is, goodbye to it. And like people are like, oh, you're exaggerating. I'm like, do you not see what's happening? Do you not see what's going on? And I think that like,
well, the Democratic Party loves to put very weak candidates up.
Not even weak,
very weak.
But like where I'm landing is like you're still trying to maintain this world that does not exist.
That doesn't exist. Nancy Pelosi, like you're talking about, she's the past of the party.
Right.
AOC is the future of what the party holds, right? But they fight so hard.
but the future is now, and you keep trying to hold. There is no reason why Bernie Sanders and all of his ideas weren't supported by the House. There was no reason. If you would have talked to if you would have polled 100 young people in any city in the United States, you would have found, I don't know, like those things just make.
But they don't care. They don't care about what's good for the people.
I guess it's about
they want what's good for them as individuals, as wealthy people,
maintaining the power and the status quo, and that's where I'm landing. And like, I just feel as though that's not going to work best for them. And so I think on that end, I feel like that ends our episode. We are a few minutes over. Thank you so much for watching. Ryan, thank you for joining us. It was wonderful, amazing, awesome. Thank you.
I'm the lucky one. Thank you.
Thank you. For those of you who is our first, for those of you joining us, or who watched our episode for the first time, my name is Elizabeth Chijioke. I'm your host of the Rona Report.
I'm Rock.
And I'm Marisa.
And this is Ryan. Or Ryan, you want to exit your...
And Ryan. Yeah.
All right. Good night, everyone.